Okay, so today I want to reflect on Johnny Depp, Brad Pitt, Marilyn Manson, and Russell Brand in particular as men who have received multiple allegations against them and how they haven't been convicted of any crimes. This links on from what I was talking about yesterday about Marilyn Manson and how he is due to perform at Wembley Arena. And so it really kind of draws attention to how, whilst these men have not been convicted, they are still free to generate their own income. And it is significant income as well. Um, this speaks to kind of the wider issues of how, when domestic abuse, sexual abuse cases come up, this is a kind of extreme version. This is extreme wealth, but it's still about the power dynamic of how men are usually much more likely to be able to carry on with their lives and earn money, and they don't see the same impact that women do. Um, it's important that we maintain our own perspective on it because the message that is sent is very much that these men have not committed any crimes and they are entitled to continue with their lives. And that is a kind of a clear message, and it means that you have to be very careful in some ways about how you talk about it, because it can be seen as really kind of character assassination. It plays into this whole issue of cancel culture, because it's very easy to create the narrative of women being crazy. So you need to look at the facts. You need to look at this in terms of the broader picture and exactly what is going on. So, with all four of those men altogether, there are at least 15 women that we know of who have come forward with very serious allegations about each of them. I won't go into the details of them, they're well documented. But in order for all of them to not have committed any of these offences, all of these women must be lying, because even with some of the cases where it seems that it's one ex-partner, for example, with Johnny Depp, Jennifer Grey and Ellen Barkin have actually come forward and said that he was very controlling and he would fly into rages. So it's important to recognise that in the wider context of, it's very easy to minimise and to suggest that these women are all wrong and they're all lying, even though when they speak out and they are incredibly brave. You've seen what happened to Amber Heard. You know that when women speak up, that they are going to be character assassinated by the media machine behind that powerful man. And that's what happens. There was a power imbalance between Depp and Heard. She was much younger, he was much older, he had a lot more wealth than she did. And that continues. And that's what he wanted to continue, to maintain his power in that situation. If you buy into the narrative that at least 15 women that we know of are lying and that their motives are highly questionable, then you have to accept that 15 women are lying and that 4 men are telling the truth. And you have to ignore everything that those men have ever said or done, where, as I've said many times, all you have to do is look back on their interviews, the content of their comedy or humour, or the way that they present, the things that they've said. It all comes together. And so the whole issue of these men are innocent, therefore they are entitled to do what they want, in terms of the justice system, they are. But in terms of consumerism, we have very clear power around where we put that. Because, you've got to remember, okay, I'm Generation X. These guys are Generation X. I've been to see Johnny Depp, Brad Pitt, Russell Brand. I didn't like Marilyn Manson, but 3 out of 4, I'm just saying, I've contributed to their success, very much. I saw all of them become famous. I remember Depp when he was in blooming 21 Jump Street. Okay, I'm not going to go into my age too much, but the point is that this is a generation that has been supported by female Gen Xers. And now, you know what? You're really starting to get on my nerves. So, whilst I might have gone to your films before, I might have watched your comedy routines, I might have been interested in your content. Now, I do not want to know. I am not going to waste a single penny on any of you. And in fact, I'm going to try and make sure that if you try to do anything, like you want to do an event in my city, or you want to come to where I live and say the same kind of thing, I'm going to do everything I can to stop you. So the point that I'm making is never underestimate how much power you have. Because how many times as women are we told, you should be grateful for what you have. You shouldn't make a fuss. You shouldn't draw attention. Who do you think you are by speaking out, by saying that? That is something that's drilled into us from when we're young. And it's also something that becomes part of our inner monologue. And we really have to fight against it, because systems are set up to continue to protect men who are in positions of power, because they want to maintain the status quo. So when you start being authentic, when you start telling the truth, when you start showing up and you're there for other people, it will annoy the heck out of them. So keep doing it. We can feel so powerless when we're trying to work hard on our own. And this is why we need to reach out to each other. It's so important to build networks and communities. It's so important to share our stories, but also our perspective and our feelings on what we see. Because, I'm from a generation where I've seen all of them come from essentially like teenage boys to becoming entitled monsters who think they can rule and manage and almost like hold court over everybody else. Who do they think they are? Honestly, who do they think they are? It really, if it doesn't make you angry, it should. And if you are aware of what's going on, it's really important to talk about it. Because that whole narrative of how these women are just crazy and they're lying spreads to women like me, women that I know, women from my community, where you're then part of that. So you are also crazy and you are also foolish for believing these women, because you're all complicit. Rather than, honestly, if you unpack it, if you break it down, if you just have any common sense and you look at the facts, you will see how rare it is for women to make false allegations. You will see how difficult it is for women to come forward, and how low the conviction rates are in criminal cases, particularly in sexual violence. And it's not getting any better. I'm really interested to talk more on this. I think it's a really important topic, but I am super crystal clear that I want you to understand that if you feel outraged by this, you have power. You absolutely have power. You have power to decide where you put your money, where you put your attention, where you put your time. You absolutely do. And so you can reject this narrative and you can support the wider movement of women who are just, we're not taking it anymore. We're not. Gen X women help put these individuals where they are. Gen X women aren't going to be there for them anymore. So that will hopefully be a bit of a sharp wake up for them. Anyway, if you agree, hit like, share and follow for more content.